Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem on my Blitz game number 614. I had the white pieces and played d4 here. My opponent went knight f6, which can introduce a lot of different defenses. I continue with c4 and g6. This starts to narrow down the possibilities. Now we're most likely in a King's Indian or a Grunfeld. I just continue with the main line, knight c3. He goes bishop g7, and then he goes... then I go e4. So this rules out the Grunfeld. If you wanted to play the Grunfeld, he had to play d5, the move before bishop g7. So now we're definitely in King's Indian territory, and he continues the main move here, d6. And I go with this very rare move, g3. So my reasoning on this particular move order that I play is that, first of all, I don't mind playing against the Grunfeld. So if he wants to play the Grunfeld, I'm happy to allow that. So I don't play g3. I just play the main line against the Grunfeld. You can play g3 against the Grunfeld, by the way. That's the fianchetto variation, but I'm not familiar with that. But since he's decided to play the King's Indian rather than the Grunfeld, I don't like the main lines of the King's Indian so much, and so I've been experimenting with this sideline with g3. So I'm in a rare position right now, relatively, and the chess engine rates this as about even. So this is one of those cases where I give up the opening advantage in order to get a even position, but where I'm trying to gain some experience with this position and learn how to play it, and hopefully eventually I will learn it better than my opponent, although this particular opponent, who is highly rated, seemed to have some interesting ideas about how to play it. So he castled. I went bishop g2. You can see these are the main moves, and he plays e5, and so that's definitely the King's Indian move and what I expect. I have seen c5 in this position, and it looks like c6 also is one of the ideas here. But e5 is the main move here. And then the chess engine likes to grab space, so it actually prefers the immediate d5. I like to hold off on that. Knight ge2 is the main move in the book, which I think I should try that next time. It looks like an interesting position for the knight, supporting a potential push of the pawn to f5. Or f4 rather. So that's an idea, but I was just playing with knight f3 here. Both moves defend the d pawn, which does come under fire, so that's important. And then he went bishop g4, a rare move. So the main move here is knight bd7. And after bishop g4, actually, white is doing just fine with d5. And this tactic he tried should not be so great for black. Let's see, he takes here. It's an interesting tactic, so it caught me by surprise. It's one of those things that you should be, well, once you gain more experience with the position, you get familiar with all these little tactics that show up. But it's a pretty clever one. It's taking advantage of this pin here. So when I take his knight, he is going to get a tempo with the pawn. This pawn comes forward with a tempo on my knight, and it moves away, and then it comes, the e-pawn comes forward to attack my pinned knight. So he gets the piece back. On the other hand, I get the pawn back. So it's not like this tactic wins material, and it comes out, even the way I played it, it comes out at about even. But I had better here. Okay, so to start with, knight takes e4. That's the right move. Go ahead and take that knight and see what he's got planned. And f5, this reveals the idea of the tactic. He's kicking this knight away, and he's going to play e4 to win back his knight. And now I played the move bishop g5, which is an interesting move. You know, you want to not just give in to these pawn pushes, not just fall into your opponent's plans. You want to try and find something interesting to do, and if you can get some tempo moves and get some development going, it'll often serve you well. Bishop g5 turns out is the second choice of the chess engine. The top choice of the chess engine is to move this knight out of the way and put the knight on g5. So when that knight goes to g5, what it has, and the idea I missed during the game, is it has the idea of going to this e6 square, which is a great square for the knight, and he's going to have to... well, that's not true. In many lines, though, he loses this bishop, which makes it more difficult for him to get rid of that irritating knight on e6. I was about to say he has to trade off the bishop, but I think there's ways for him to preserve it as well. Anyway, let's continue the line. Line continues e4. He's got to get his piece back. Now you drop this knight in here. he grabs the piece. He grabs the knight, you grab the pawn, and this bishop has nowhere to go. So I guess this is what I was thinking. You manage to trade off this light squared bishop. If black waits for white to take, then it loses a pawn. So taking is pretty much forced. Then the rook here pinning the knight, maybe getting some pressure, and white castles. And so we can pause here, and you can see the material is even. My bishop is still over here defending the b2 pawn against his bishop. So it's a little bit tied up now. It's a little bit uncomfortable maybe, but this is a great knight here. And and if I ever want to, I can trade that knight off for that bishop if this bishop becomes too much of an annoyance. So actually, white is better in this position. So the tactic that surprised me was not such a great move in the best. So this gives some advantage to white. So with best play by white. But what I played, bishop g5, the second choice, leads to about equality. So we get an equal position. I kick the queen moves, and then the chess engine wants me to continue with queen b3. So this is my second move, which is maybe a second choice here. Queen to d3 gets me in trouble. We'll see later. But just to look at this queen b3 move, the queen unpins the knight and stays in touch with the knight. And now if he takes this knight right away, then this knight can drop back to d2, and I get to round up this pawn with the knight, and that's actually a decent square for the knight. This is an okay position. It's and white is black is pretty active too. He hasn't developed the knight yet, so there's pros and cons here, but the chess engine rates it as about even. Queen d3 gets me in a little bit of trouble. That's what I did in this position. I wanted to unpin the knight. Didn't think about this move or the difference between the two. But the difference is when I go to d3, one difference is when he takes here right away. Yeah, I think this is the main difference. I have to take back with the queen because the queen is under attack and the knight is under attack. And now he has a tactic which he didn't play. This is why queen d3 is a bad move, because he can play this tactic. He can take my knight. I'd have to take back with the bishop because now this file is opened and the rook is looking there at the bishop, and so I couldn't take back with the queen. Then he can pile up with his queen and his rook, and this is I can't defend that piece. Well, I could move my king forward to e2, I guess, but that's pretty horrible. The chess engine gives the best line as bishop back to e2, which just gives up this pawn, and so you can see that he's invading. So if we go back to this point in time where I played queen to d3 versus queen to b3, that's the critical difference. In the queen b3 line, I'm defending the knight this way, and so if he takes now with the bishop, I take back with the queen. It's still safe because this pawn has blocked the view of the rook. And it's all about the move order here. And now when he takes the knight, I take back with the queen, but there's no bishop on f3 for him to pile up on, and if he plays queen f2, I can castle. So that's why queen b3 is a better move here. Anyway, shows also why chess engines are better than people, because it spots that instantly, whereas I had to spend some time figuring it out, why queen b3 was so much better than queen d3, which seems to me the more natural move. Anyway, I played queen d3. He went f takes e4, and I took back. And but instead of taking the knight here and getting this tactic on the open f file, he just played bishop f5, chasing my queen away. And now, even though I feel a little bit uncomfortable in this position, it's actually about even. And we stay in the range of about even until I blunder a pawn a little bit later, and my game goes downhill. But I was doing pretty good against a strong player. He pushes on with c5. I castle, so now I can move this knight and not worry about the f-pawn so much. Well, actually, there's no problem with the f-pawn right here. He hasn't piled up on the f-file. But anyway, getting my king out of the open center seemed like a good idea. Knight to d7, he gets his last piece in the game. I go knight to h4, hitting his bishop. This looks like a dangerous piece, and I want to trade it off. He pushes his e-pawn forward. Maybe this is a little bit questionable. The chess engine doesn't give a question mark to these moves. It thinks these moves are okay, but it does. This pawn duo does present some problems for white. I have to be careful how I blockade them. And pushing the e-pawn forward opens up this square for the knight. That was a good move on black's part. Let's see. I bring my bishop out to h6. Cancel that. Oh, I played this bishop to h6. Yeah, I was thinking of trading off his dark squared bishop, which is kind of a threat on this diagonal. If he ever takes here, by the way, I always have rook to b1 to grab the pawn on b7. So this pawn is not really hanging here. But still, this is kind of an annoying piece here, and I might want to free up this rook at some point, not have to keep it on the back rank to guard against those threats. He went queen to g6 here, hitting my bishop and forcing this exchange. Now the queen is looking at this pawn. Let's see, and I went queen f4 here, taking a look at his loose e-pawn. He decides to block that. I go queen g5 check, he blocks. And the chess engine wants me just to go back to f4 and calls the position a draw. But, well, I wasn't ready to draw just yet. I went queen to d2. And, but that does give his knight this great square on e5. And this is really the critical point of the game. I was focused on the center by this point, which is something that happens to me. It's kind of like tunnel vision. You know, I'm focused on a certain side of the board. I'm seeing all these threats, pawns rushing down at me, the queen lined up, you know, against my king, the rook over here, and I miss actually the biggest threat in the position, which is just to take my c-pawn and start getting the knight in here and destroying my. I mean, it's material. It's up material, but it's also once the knight is here harassing my queen, I start to run out of moves pretty quickly, and these pawns start flooding forward. So I really need to play the move b3 right here, and after b3. Once again, the position is still about even. So this is how far I lasted, you could say. I played rook a to d1. Actually, he missed the move. He should take the pawn right away. He didn't take it on this move, but I continued to ignore this possibility and I played f3. Like I said, I was just focused on this area of the board. So beware that tunnel vision. That's the moral of this story. And after this, I'm just lost. He grabs that pawn, hits my queen, and it's just difficult for me to find even good squares for my queen. I drop back here, and he gets another pawn because the queen and the knight are coordinating on the b2 square, and I don't have any way to chase it off. Let's see. I can chase it off, but I don't get a pawn back. I played rook d2. The knight goes to d3. Great square for the knight. Chasing my queen around, and then my position just collapses in a real hurry. He's 2 pawns up, but the worst thing is that my king is exposed, and these pawns are here to remove the rest of whatever cover the king might have. So queen d4 check, king h1, but nicely played by black. So it shows the stronger player here, pushing that pawn forward, cementing this knight. I had ideas of taking here, maybe even sacrificing on that square and then taking the knight. But now the knight is defended by 2 pawns, so it's pretty secure there. I take here anyway. I don't have other ideas in this position. And now let's see. Yeah, he played rook takes f8. Oh, it's my turn. Oh yeah, that's right. He took back the f pawn. I take, he takes, and I went here with the bishop trying to trade off the knight. But he just pushes on with e3. And, well, there were probably some better moves along here, but all of the moves lose at this point. And this is a particularly nice tactic, this knight f2 check. It hits my king, hits my queen in 2 different ways. The queen's undefended over here, and after I take the knight, then he takes my queen. And so I resigned at this point, but a good game by black, and well, I played reasonably well for the first 22 moves, and then that one mistake, and it's all over. But that's what happens when you face a stronger player. It just takes one mistake, and then they don't let you off the hook after that. Okay, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.